The punishments were intended to inflict the greatest amount of bodily suffering and mental torment on the guilty parties and those close to them. Further punishments, after tattooing, were foot amputation, the removal of one's reproductive organs, and potentially being roasted or cooked alive during China Dynasty. Chinese archaeologists discovered a human skeleton in 1999 that was missing the right foot. Recent medical examination of the female's incomplete bones, which were found at a site in Shanxi province, revealed that she had endured a severe type of punishment in ancient China that involved amputating a criminal's foot. Before the early imperial time, Yue was one of the 5 punishments that were used as punishment for the most serious offenses in China. These penalties were characterized by great cruelty and were intended to inflict the most severe physical harm and mental misery on the guilty parties and those close to them. The types of punishments that the victims received were frequently determined by the ruler's personal preferences, political concerns, and other circumstances, despite the existence of written regulations in the Chinese kingdoms and states that matched the crimes to the punishments. Tattooing was the first and easiest of the 5 punishments. Indelible markings, usually words describing the offender's misdeeds or the site of their exile or hard labor camp, were made on the offender's face or other exposed areas of the body. These indelible tattoos clearly and permanently identified their owners as lifelong ex-offenders. The criminal's nose was then amputated, which is known as rhinotomy. It left the victim with permanent scars, similar to tattooing. Yet, due to the use of blades and bloodletting, rhinotomy and the following 2 penalties frequently resulted in fatal illnesses. Yue came next on the scale. Depending on the severity of the crimes committed, different periods punishments varied, with the left foot being amputated for less serious offenses and the right foot being amputated for more significant ones. The deceased woman, who was estimated to have been in her early 30s at the time of her death, appeared to have committed the former. The irreversible loss of one's reproductive ability was the gong, the 4th punishment. Castration was used to punish the male victims. Sima Qian 145 BC 86 BC, the emasculated founder of conventional Chinese history writing, was one of the prominent casualties. Female victims of gong punishments may have had their abdomens pounded with a heavy stick in order to cause harm to the womb. Death was the final of the 5 punishments. Yet, there were several methods of execution, ranging from straightforward strangulation or decapitation to boiling or grilling someone alive and literally producing mincemeat of their flesh and salting it. The cruelty was intentional and planned to shock and dissuade other people from committing the same acts by inflicting as much suffering on the victims and their families as possible. Happily, Chinese civilization had advanced by the early Han Dynasty in the early 2nd century BC to the point where kings felt it was appropriate to replace the brutal punishments with the new 5 punishments, which had developed over the ages. They included lashing, flogging, hard labor, exile, and the death penalty. Death was still the ultimate cost, but the odd and horrible ways of passing away were no longer an option. This is not to say that the older punishments were abandoned. In fact, tattooing continued until the early 20th century, at the end of the Qing Dynasty. However, their frequency was greatly diminished, and punishments like rhinotomy and were completely abandoned. Many nations still use the death penalty today, including developed nations like Japan, Singapore, and the United States. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.